Our final guest today is Judge Scott Ugell, Clarkstown's longest-serving judge. Welcome, Judge Ugell.
George, good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
So, Judge, delighted to have you on the program, and we would like to maybe just speak a little bit about your background for the benefit of our viewers, our Clarkstown residents. You know, what got you into being a lawyer? You know, maybe you can speak a little bit about your family background and how you became a lawyer.
Well, I went to Syracuse University as an undergrad. I studied at the Newhouse School. That's the School of Public Communications. I have a broadcast journalism degree there. And just towards the end of graduating college, I realized that I would like to do something more exciting than perhaps just working in the media. So I applied to law school and got into Hofstra, where I grew up in Nassau County in Long Island. So it was like leaving Syracuse, which was rain and snow every day, back to normal weather conditions and back to my hometown. And then while at Hofstra, I started getting involved more in the political field. I became the chairman of the Republican Party at the law school there and got involved became a deputy town attorney right after graduating from law school.
Which town?
Well, I grew up in the town of Hempstead. That's the largest township in the country. Has a population larger than 6 of the individual U.S. states.
Wow. Wow.
We're very congested. So when you work on issues like illegal two families, I mean, that was something that was being confronted 30 years ago down there when I was deputy town attorney, because it's a huge problem and has to be addressed. And I know that you're working on it, and I think people really appreciate that.
So let's bring us a little bit forward. So you went to Syracuse, you got out. And
went to Hofstra, graduated, was a deputy town attorney for a couple of years. My ex-wife, who I met at Syracuse, was from Rockland, and after living on the island for a couple of years, she expressed her dissatisfaction with the traffic, and that is what is Long Island. So we moved up here, and I got involved working, trying to make friends and meet people. I worked on Joe Holland's campaign. When he was county clerk. He ran against an incumbent assembly member, Bob Connor, who had been there for quite a while, and I worked on his campaign, and of course he won, and then got involved, and then had the opportunity to run when I was in my 20s. I'd only been living here for about a year. Didn't win, but made a lot of friends and had a good time. And then sadly, about a year after that, one of the judges that I had run against had unfortunately gotten into trouble, this is a crazy story, tried to buy an illegal gun and silencer from a Clarkstown police officer. He had to resign. The vacancy came up, and then I ran sort of in an off-year special election, and that was 25 years ago. So I've been on the bench 25 years. Like you mentioned when you introduced me, I'm the longest-serving town justice in the town, in the history of the town. I was also the youngest ever elected. I think I just turned 31 or so. And it's the greatest gig to have. It's a great job. Working for the town of Clarkstown is great. The people are wonderful. Our residents are great people. The court system runs so well. We have not even the judges that I work with, the 3 others, but our court staff are so wonderful and so committed. They really make that court run so efficiently. There are things that we can do better, which is part of our conversation today. But you'd be glad to know, being the captain of the ship here in the town, that I'm sure you know this already, that the town justice system is running very well, and we should all be very proud of it. What could we do better? That's probably the next question you were going to ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
You took well, you have a degree in broadcast journalism, so I can see it's coming right through.
Thank you.
So, Judge, what can we do better?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to increase the fees that we charge litigants. It would help pay for the cost of the court system. At the moment, from what I read, we just about pay for ourselves. Maybe we burden the town for a small amount, but we should be able to pay for ourselves. So I think we should get the home rule exemption from the state, allow us to charge a little more in fees. Not a lot, just a little more to help pay for the cost. That would make the system run a little more efficiently. But what we could do even more so is make the court more accessible to people. So that would mean going back to the state, as I did 25 years ago when I first started, and increasing working with the state magistrates and the assembly, of course, increase the amount that people can sue for in small claims or a civil court. When I started 25 years ago, it was only $1,500. Right. Judge Alfieri and I actually worked together in a bipartisan way and convince the state magistrates, to convince the Assembly and the state Senate to increase it to 3,000. 25 years later, it really needs to be more. Why is that important? Because we can handle the cases. We've got 4 talented members of the bench and staff who can handle a few extra cases. It'll make the courts more accessible. Right now, if you had a claim above $3,000, you'd have to decide whether or not you would either take a lesser amount in small claims and get it done quickly, or go to state Supreme Court, which takes a very long time. Right. Most cases take well over a year. The fees in state Supreme Court are about $400 today, just to commence a lawsuit and pay the fee to get assigned to a particular judge. That's really not the best way we should handle justice. People should have access. Compare us to other towns or counties or other systems. I grew up when I was a young lawyer in what was called the district court system. Right. It wasn't town or village justice courts. It wasn't by town, it was by region, let's say, and there were a few district court buildings in a county, in Nassau County. And there, even then, 25, 30 years ago when I first started practicing law, the fees were a little bit higher, but the amount you could sue for were higher. So we should try to emulate what district court does. Maybe allow people to sue for $5,000 in small claims and maybe $10,000 in the civil part. That would both make the courts more accessible. It would increase the efficiency to the system. We can handle we can handle more cases, I should say, with the same infrastructure, and we'd all benefit. Our constituents would benefit. The town would benefit with slightly larger fees to help pay for the cost, and the system would run much more efficiently from a justice point of view.
So let's talk a little bit about just overall. So for the benefit of our viewers, so there's multiple courts within Rockland County. So each town has their own court system. Most villages have their own court system. So, and then there's a county court system. Right. And then there's a state Supreme Court. Right. Am I missing any?
Family court.
Family court. Right. Family court. Okay.
Right.
So, maybe just very quickly for the benefit of our viewers, what are each of the courts kind of handle, and how are they differentiated, and specifically, I know that you and I have talked about this, and I do look forward to working with you in the new year for us to be able to pursue these ideas, because I do think that there's an opportunity. We have one of the busiest justice courts within all of the state.
We do.
We have we're the 14th largest town by population in New York State, and so by virtue of the almost 88,000 residents of our town, there's an awful, and the large swath of commercial real estate that we have here. We have 63% approximately of the commercial ratables in all of Rockland County. So there's a lot of white-collar crime and fraud and identity theft and things of that nature that come through, initially will come through justice court. So just go through very quickly for me the differentiation with the different courts.
Sure.
And then let's get back into justice court.
Sure. Well, let's start with justice court. We handle small claims, which is claims that people can bring for up to $3,000. You don't need a lawyer. Then there's the civil calendar, which is, oddly enough, also only $3,000, but there you do need a lawyer. Then we do the vehicle and traffic calendar. We do the building code violations. We handle, obviously, all criminal matters up to felonies. And we also handle felony cases at the commencement of the case. So we will have hearings on felonies to determine whether people should be held for the actions of the grand jury. Once that happens, Rockland County Court only handles felony cases. So they may start in justice court, but they go over to the county court. County court only does felony cases. That's it. Supreme Court, which is in the same building, of course, handles all matrimonial cases, and it handles the larger civil cases, which is why I was saying earlier, if we had more jurisdiction in town justice courts, we could take some of those medium-sized claims. Family court handles essentially family custody, adoption issues, family offense petitions, things that are very limited. Supreme Court generally has the same jurisdiction of family court issues, family court matters, but almost always family court cases of that nature go to family court. And of course, we forgot surrogates court,
Right.
and that's strictly for trusts and estates, for pretty much for the most part. Name changes also as well. So that's the broad review in Rockland. It changes county to county, so it'll be different. Surprisingly, in New York City, for example, and other places. So what I was saying earlier is, if we wanted to have people have more access to the court system, easier, cheaper, one of the ways to do it is put more of the civil cases, allow them to be in the local courts.
And Judge, just jumping back to one of the things that you had kind of touched on earlier. So you're really arguing, and I know we've discussed this before. You're really arguing for a higher minimum level or higher maximum level rather for jurisdiction purposes.
Right.
And by and large, you don't believe that it's going to, in a town like Clarkstown, it's not really going to affect this negatively.
Not at all, because there's four of us. We all run our cases very efficiently. We have the resources to do it. And I think that it would just make the system run better. I don't think any of the other judges would disagree with me. Of course, you'll be speaking to all of them over the course of the next few months, so you'll hear from them, of course. Your viewers will hear from them. And the only reason why it hasn't happened up to this point is because the upstate judges have lobbied the state magistrates and said, we don't want more cases.
Right.
The interesting phenomenon about New York State is the town and village justice courts from Orange County south all the way to Montauk are almost always lawyers. Upstate, north of Orange County, they're often not lawyers. And they're regular folk, farmers or regular retail business owners, whatever, which are not as excited to get more cases as maybe a lawyer like myself would be. And that's where always the problem has always been.
Right. In New York, there's 932 towns. Out of that 932 towns, there's a precious few that would be towns that are quite large. Now, as I said earlier, Clarkstown is number 14. Here in Rockland County, Ramapo's in the top 10. Orangetown's in roughly around number 20, 21, and Havastraw's down around number 30. There's only about 100 towns in all of New York State that are considered what's called a first-class town, which the qualification on that is about 50,000 residents and types of services. So the vast majority of towns in New York State are pretty much part-time town supervisors, part-time elected officials, much smaller in scale. The smallest town, I think, in New York State is about 300 people. And the largest town, as you said, is out in Long Island. I think it's Hempstead, and they're about 900,000 people.
Honestly, it's probably much more than that, because they don't count all the illegal two-families.
I do want to just touch base on, we're almost out of time, but I do want to touch base on one of the things that's new through my administration is the creation of the Office of Code Compliance, and we've been working closely with our Deputy Town Attorney, Leslie Kahn, with the judges, of course, with yourself and the other three judges out in Justice Court, to really kind of bring compliance in that area. And we're taking more cases into Justice Court than we've ever done before. And we're actually effectuang warrants, and I've
been signing some of them.
Signing some of them. So what has that been like, for you? Because I know that this has been a real concern. As of the taping of this program, which is not going to air until the new year, but we're just a few days shy of Christmas, and in today's Journal News, there's reports about the state actually putting a monitor in the town of Ramapo and the village of Spring Valley in their building departments because of their lack of enforcement and compliance. So we've certainly been ahead of the curve here in my administration in terms of trying to combat illegal housing and the violations of land use law that have taken place, here within the town, and trying to prevent it from growing. But what has that been like? What's that working relationship been like to the best of your experience, best of your ability to be able to characterize that for us?
Well, I think it's been very favorable. The people who have come to court, who are the litigants in these types of cases, have been very respectful. I think they understand that property is zoned for a particular purpose or a particular use, and they have to be responsible for that. I guess it's never really been a big issue in the town up until your administration, so it's a new thing for people to learn that it's being enforced. But I think it's only fair to all the hardworking, tax-paying members of our community that people are asked to abide by the zoning and town code. It's only fair and reasonable, and I think by and large it's been a very positive response. Even the people who are brought into court, I can tell they understand and appreciate what's happening, and I think it's been a very positive experience thus far, and it's the right thing to do given what you're confronted with, with having to pay for the infrastructure for people, and everyone has to be responsible to participate. A good working community is where everyone participates and is responsible, not just for their own actions, but to make the place a better place. Which leads me to one of our final points today, how important it is that big brothers and big sisters continue on and be supported by the county. Last night we had, apparently there was a meeting and Big Brothers was defunded. As chairman of the board, I want elected officials like yourself who have the power to perhaps change this, I don't, to realize how valuable Big Brothers, Big Sisters is. We don't just mentor people. We run the supervised visitation program for Rockland County Family Court, speaking of family court. And there's a concern that, and you especially can appreciate this because I see you at Eagle Scout functions, how important it is to mentor and support young people, particularly those who are at risk. So that's one of the things I think maybe I want to end on a positive note, that we can find a way to maintain Big Brothers. And as chairman, and you've been very supportive yourselves, and I appreciate that. But that's a big concern that we have here in the community.
Well, Judge, I know you're very involved in the community. I often hear about. We see you on television with your wonderful commercials down in D.C. about your private practice.
Sure.
You've got a law firm, so. As a judge, you're able to, as a county court judge, and I guess as a justice court level judge, you're able to maintain a private practice.
Yes.
You've got a thriving private practice.
We're pretty busy.
And it's good to see. But you're also very involved in the community. You attend a lot of different events the years that you're able to, and because there are certain years that judges really pretty much you're not able to really be.
Can't politic, but I still do, and we all should continue to support those organizations, not when we're just running for re-election, but if we really care about them, we're there year, and I know you are, and I see it, that's why you said it, year after year supporting our community. It's important. For those of us who have been given what a wonderful opportunity to serve in an elected capacity, it's our responsibility to continue helping our community whenever we can, however we can. If everyone, not just elected officials, if everyone gave of themselves a little bit, their time or money, whatever, George, you realize what a better, more wonderful world we would live in. In fact, there's not enough people help each other enough, and that would really fill in a lot of the gaps where people are experiencing difficulty. Everyone experiences difficulty in their lives, and as a community, we should all be there together to help each other when that eventuality might come our way.
Well, Judge, I want to thank you for being such a wonderful guest. And
thank you for having me.
You are our longest-serving town justice, 25 years, and counting. And I want to thank you for all your efforts on behalf of the people of Clarkstown.
Thank you for everything. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.